sir.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order so we can get started, so we can make sure we remain on schedule. All right.
Item 1 is a presentation of second quarter ending June 30th, 2023, investment reports for the 1945 and 1949 pension plans, along with the July 2023 update.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Siegler, thank you so much for being here. The floor is yours, Madam.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. So everyone should have a copy of my presentation. It was on the screens, but it has gone away. Did I do something? Okay, good. It was magic. All right, we're going to go ahead and review. In front of you, you have the capital market returns going through the second quarter of the year. When you think about the market overall, the bear market rally that really began last October with peaking 2- and 10-year Treasury rates has been very resilient. The S&P 500 index through the first half of the year was up 14%. We've had long-term interest rates that provided some valuation support over the last 9 months. And the 2023 positive performance has really been squarely rooted in the better-than-expected economic growth and durable labor market that we've seen this year. In essence, the consumer has helped continue to prop up the economy, and we have seen that continuation through the numbers we just came out in July as well. We continue to expect the U.S. economy to experience a soft landing this year, though we do think there will be continued uncertainty around the extent of what the tighter credit conditions will weigh on the activity and increase risk to the downside. Flat growth in the middle of the year should keep the recession conversation alive, although we're not expecting that for 2023. It's still on the table for 2024 at this point. When you think about the forecasts and the calls for weak performance that we'd seen for the performance from the second quarter of 2023, they really have not come to fruition. When you look at the sharp slowdown in consumer spending that everyone expected and the contraction in business investment, the correction in housing activity that's bottomed, and the contribution of that positively to GDP that we expect to begin next quarter, we're relatively optimistic in where we go for the economy on the short term. Inflation, we've seen inflation come down month over month, and when we look at that on a quarter-over-quarter basis, we've continued to see that trend to the downside, which we think is a positive for us moving forward. We've continued to see the Fed raise interest rates. We had 10 leading up to June, 10 consecutive raises, and then a pause in the June period, and then one more increase in July. There's still on the table one more increase throughout this year that really is priced into the market action today, and so we're watching that to see where that goes and really kind of using that for our base case and where we think the market is from now to the end of the year. We don't think we'll get a repeat. It won't be as robust as we've seen the first 2 quarters. When I show you the performance, you'll see that, but we are still optimistic. Historically, in the market, the fourth quarter of the year is positive, and so if we make it through this third quarter, which can seem to have some weakness just from a seasonality basis, then we should have a really good year on our hands from a return perspective, and so we're optimistic for the market for the rest of the year. When you look so far, I mentioned to you the S&P 500, and this is going through the June timeframe for the quarter because we're really looking at that second quarter data, up 8.74%. When you look at the mid-cap index for just mid-sized stocks, up 4.7% for the quarter, and then your smallest stocks up just over 5.2% for the quarter. Best performing sector has continued. We've seen a repeat of first quarter, technology stocks being the best performing sector, while utility stocks have been continued to show some weakness. And so we think you're going to see some sector changes, and we don't think you'll continue to see the tech sector be the one that's outperforming, but we've seen some more leaders really in the consumer discretionary and consumer services that have started to pick up and gain some steam as well. On the developed markets, if you look at the MSCI EAFE, which we're just measuring the overall developed international market for the quarter, up 2.95%, and then the emerging markets up just over 1% for the quarter. And then when we look at our fixed income, you look at the Barclays aggregate, which is what we use just to measure the overall fixed income market for the U.S. It was actually negative for the quarter, down 0.84%, because we did see a continued movement in interest rates a little bit higher, which was a negative. Positive for the year to date, but negative for the quarter. When we look at the 1949 plan, If you look on the top right-hand side, you can see we gained market value at $64,889,000. We've had net contributions of a negative of $14,158 and an investment gain on the year-to-date of $6,042,827, bringing us to that ending market value of just over $70,918,000. On the left-hand side, you can see the breakdown for distribution by assets. We had 57.6% in domestic equities, 13.7% in international equities, bringing us just to that 71.33% in line with the Georgia Code investment statements. We have flexibility up to 75, so we're in line. Fixed income at 25.14%, and then just over 3.5% in cash. And when we look at the cash flow, even though it looks positive year to date, you'll see that we are transferring out to pay for benefits on a regular basis. So we keep a little higher cash. And just as a side note, so you know, that cash that is there, it is in earning interest, and so that's earning just over 5.2% today. So we look at your individual managers. We have your large cap value manager for the quarter up 4.15%, and for your fiscal year up 6.78%, ahead of their benchmarks in both time frames. Your large cap core manager for the quarter up 10.8%, and for the fiscal up 19.38%, ahead of both of their benchmarks. MDT, which is your all cap core manager, so we're going to have some small mid cap exposure in there, not as strong, up 5.77% and 12% for the fiscal year. A little bit trailed on their benchmark, but I'll remind you they were your best performing manager last year, and so their seasonality, they've just tipped under for this year to date so far. No concerns there. Lazard, your international, this is your more developed value-oriented international manager, up 4.2% for the quarter and 12.35% for the fiscal, ahead of their benchmark in both time frames. And then Thornburg, which is your international growth manager, up 3.7% for the quarter and 12.16% for the benchmark, 12.16% for the fiscal, ahead of the benchmark in both time frames as well. We have PIMCO, which is your fixed income manager, down for the quarter, but better than the benchmark at 0.42%, and for the fiscal up 2.65%. That gave us a total with the cash that we have on hand for the quarter of 4.39%, and for your fiscal year through June of 9.64%. I do have the update through July, just so you could see where we were, and we're at 12.3% so far through the July timeframe. And we are transferring, I did mention the cash flow, just so you are aware, we're transferring about $589,000 on a monthly basis out of this. And so we're generating that and then some. So it's taking care of itself, which is great. Any questions on the 49 plan before I move to the 45?
Any questions, guys? All right, Ms. Eagler, proceed.
Perfect. All right. On the 45, you'll see very similar information. The one difference between the 49 plan and the 45 plan is that the 49 plan does have international because it's considered a large plan. The small plan, under the small plan rules for the Georgia Code, the 45 plan cannot have international exposure, so it's all domestic. And so when you look at that allocation, you'll see that on the bottom left-hand side, just showing the international, knows the international there, the total equity, U.S. equity exposure at 49.9%. And then fixed income at 42.7%. We do have a little higher degree of cash on this one at 7.37%, and that's because we are transferring out a higher percentage on a monthly basis for this plan. You began the market value at the beginning of the year of $4,738,868. We've had positive cash flow in contributions of $201,678. An investment gain of $344,594, which gave us the ending market value of $5,285,140. Similar managers, so you'll see a similar rate of return for these. You have your large cap value manager at 4.27% for the quarter and 6.8% for the fiscal. Your large cap core manager up 10.79%, and for the fiscal up 19.31%. Both of those again ahead of their benchmarks. Same with MDT. Just as they were on the 49 plan, trailing a little bit this year so far in the 45 plan, but up 5.75% for the quarter and 12.06% for the fiscal. When we look at that fixed income manager again, ahead of the benchmark, but down 4.43% for the quarter, positive 2.66% for the fiscal year, which gives you a total return for the 45 plan for the quarter of 3.18% or 7.48% through the second quarter for the fiscal. update through July for them is up 9.5%. So we are really optimistic at how we turn out this year. Last year was a rough year. I hated to come in here and have to give negative news every quarter. We're glad to be able to come in 2 quarters in a row and give you positive news, and I'm hopeful that the next quarter is the same. Any questions for me on either plan, markets in general?
Seeing none, madam, continue.
It's easy when I have good news.
That's right.
Seeing there's no questions, and if there's anything else for me, I'm going to sit here while the actuary makes his presentation, but I am completed, and that's the end of the quarter update.
Thank you, Ms. Siegler. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Received of his information? Yes.
Number 2.
Yes. We're receiving this information without objection. No objections. All right, Madam Clerk, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Item 2 is a presentation of the actuarial reports for the 1945 and 1949 pension plans and calculation of other post-employment benefits.
Mr. Carbon, welcome, sir.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Appreciate the opportunity. So what I wanted to just cover today, we'll just go over some funding issues, just a couple of the items that really impacted the change in plan costs, go over your specific funding requirements, present your GASB results for the 45 and 49 plan, and then go over the GASB results for the OPEB plan. So as Heather mentioned, the 2022 year wasn't so great, but luckily things have turned around quite a bit. But our valuation is based on the end of the year, December 22 assets. What we do, though, is we smooth in the impact of asset gains and losses, so we didn't recognize the entire loss for funding purposes this year. Just like in prior years, we didn't recognize the entire gains. And because of that, as we'll see, the impact of the asset underperformance was not quite as stark as you may think. I'll go through some of those numbers. And then one of the items that did increase liabilities beyond what we were anticipating is the fact that the cost of living increases for the year was 5%. Our assumption was 2%.
Mr. Carbon, sorry to interrupt you, but our AV specialist said you need to speak into the mic. He's not picking up. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, one of the items that did impact the liability increase was the fact that the cost of living increase was 5%. Our assumption is at 2% because historically for the last few years, the cost of living has been much lower than what we saw this year. And it's something we'll keep an eye on as far as an assumption goes. Just to note, we do track the amount that you put into the plan. If you put in more than what the state requires, we do build up credits for that, and that helps to give you a tool that if you ever needed to level out your contribution requirements, you have that tool available to you. And just note that we update the mortality table every year, which has a very modest impact on costs. But as we get updated life expectancy information, we update our tables accordingly. So before I get into your specific funding requirements, just something I always like to note is that the actuary's job is to provide a roadmap as to try to a systematic approach to funding the plan. At the end of the day, the ultimate cost of the plan are the total benefit payouts based on the plan provisions, less the investment income that the plan received during its lifetime. The ultimate cost has nothing to do with what the actuary says the annual contribution should be. The ultimate cost of the plan is really based on benefits promised and investment performance. Like I said, we're just going to, our job is, the way we look at it, is to try to find a systematic approach to try to level out your funding requirements as much as possible from year to year. So one of the things we like to look at in seeing what may have potentially impacted your plan costs is to look at head counts. In the 1945 plan, we have had 16 retirees now for the last 3 evaluations, so we haven't seen much change there. We've seen the average age of the retirees is now at 81.6 years, 1 year greater than last year because we have the same group of retirees, and we see that their average benefits went from about 48,300 to 50,700. For the 49 plan, we still have 7 active employees in the plan, but they're all beyond their normal retirement age. So, but we do have 7 active still in the plan. We have 5 participants that have terminated employment, were vested when they terminate employment, but haven't reached the age yet or haven't made the decision to start drawing benefits. And then we have seen the number of retirees decline, going from 22 to 23, which is not unusual with a plan that's as mature as your plan is. So for your 7 active participants, their average age is 67. As I mentioned, they're all beyond their normal retirement age, and their average length of service is 43 years. And for the retirees in the 49 plan, the retirees are a bit younger than the 45 plan. Their average age is just a little under 71, with average retirement benefits of $38,100 compared to $33,500 in the prior year. So as I mentioned earlier, we smooth out the impact of asset gains and losses from year to year. So on a market value basis, in 2022, the 1945 plan had an asset loss of $1.27 million. But in determining the actuarial value of assets that we use for funding purposes, it takes 5 years to recognize that full that loss. Just like you've had gains in the prior couple years, we're still recognizing pieces of those gains. So because of that, we're at a point where the actuarial value of assets are $5.7 million, the market value is $5.1 million, and it's so the actuarial value is at 110% of the market value of plan assets. So what that tells us is we have $540,000 of asset losses that have actually occurred that we haven't recognized yet because they haven't gone through the 5-year smoothing period. That's kind of the bad news. The good news is the news that Heather presented, in that we've had a good year. So we're going to have some gains hopefully for 23, which will help to offset the impact of some of those losses that we haven't recognized yet. And it's the same for the 49 plan. We use an actuarial value of assets to determine your funding requirements. We use, actually for the 45 and 49, we use the market value for the GASB results because GASB requires us to do so. So the market value of the plan's assets at the end of 22 was $65.8 million. The actuarial value was $73.3 million. On a market value basis, we had an asset loss of a little over $19.3 million, meaning we expected to get 7%, we got less than that, and we got $19.3 million less than we would have anticipated. Once again, prior couple years was a totally different story, and the 2023 is also a different story. So the fact that we're smoothing out the gains and losses really smooths out the volatility in your contribution requirements. And on the 49 plan, we have $7.4 million of losses that have occurred that we haven't smoothed in to the actuarial value of assets yet. Just looking historically at your funded status, the 45 plan in the 2020 valuation was 76.4% funded. As the markets improved, we saw that funding ratio reach up to 85%. It is now around 80%, and that is both because of the asset underperformance and the cost of living adjustment being greater than anticipated. That led to a decrease in your funding ratio. But I still, considering what the markets did, to see about a 5% decline isn't overly concerning to me, and you're still around 80% funded, which is really the benchmark. I'd like to see you be at least 80% funded as a sign of a plan being financially strong. And we saw a similar movement in the 49 plan. The funding ratio has gone from 80% in the 2020 valuation to almost 89% currently. And we even had a more modest decrease going from 22 to 23. And once again, if we can see some a strong return in the markets for the 23 year, hopefully we'll see that bounce back up closer to 90%. But still, even though we've had a modest decline in the funding ratio, it's still a strong funding ratio at 88%. So in looking at the change in the plan's unfunded liability, it went from being unfunded by just over $1 million to being unfunded by almost $1.5 million. Two big reasons for that. The asset underperformance led to a $135,000 loss for the year. And then we had the liabilities were higher than we anticipated by almost $700,000. Once again, a lot of that being driven by the cost of living adjustment being higher than we anticipated. Same story for the 49 plan. We saw the unfunded liability go from about $6.3 million to about $9.2 million. Once again, the big drivers in that increase was the fact that liabilities were about $3.3 million higher than we anticipated, once again, a lot because of the cost of living adjustments, and the asset loss was about $1.3 million. So those were the two drivers that led to the increase in the plan's unfunded liability for the year. So as far as the required contribution goes, based on the plan's unfunded liability of $1.45 million, the amount to pay down that unfunded liability is about $369,000. So that's your required contribution for the 1945 plan. That's about a $92,000 higher than last year, once again, because of the cost of living and the asset underperformance. That drove the liabilities higher and increased the amount to pay down that unfunded. In the 49 plan, we have an unfunded liability of $9.2 million. The amount to pay down that unfunded liability is $1.65 million. Because there are 7 actives in the plan, we're expecting $28,000 of employee contributions. That lowers your employer contribution for required contribution for 2023 down to $1,622,000. Now, we also calculate a recommended contribution, and the difference between the required and the recommended is the recommended will accelerate the pay down of that unfunded liability. And if you were to pay down that unfunded liability over 4 years, the recommended contribution for the 1945 plan is $637,000. And like I said, the only difference between your recommended and your required is the fact that you're going to pay down your unfunded liability much more rapidly if you pay the recommended. The recommended for the 1949 plan is paying down the unfunded liability in 9 years, and there we get the amount to pay down the unfunded, if we were to accelerate the pay down, would be $1,885,000 with $28,000 of expected employee contributions. That net number then would be $1,857,000 as a recommended contribution. As far as the GASB reporting for the 45 plan, from a balance sheet point of view, we're showing for GASB 68 purposes a total liability of the plan of $7.2 million. We have market value of plan assets of almost $5.2 million, so you'll have an unfunded liability for GASB purposes of almost $2 million. Your GASB unfunded is going to be higher than the unfunded in determining your contribution, because we use the market value of plan assets for GASB purposes, because that's what GASB standards tell us to do. So on that basis, the plan is 72% funded, and the pension expense that is reflected on the financials is $842,000 as far as the 1945 plan is concerned. The 1949 plan, we have total liabilities of almost $82.5 million. We have market value of assets of $65.8 million, so we have an unfunded liability of a little over $16.6 million for GASB purposes, and the plan is the 49 plan is almost 80% funded on a GASB basis. And your pension expense that's reflected on your financials is $5.2 million for the 49 plan. Any questions on the 45 or 49 plan before I just briefly talk about the OPEB?
Any questions, colleagues?
Okay.
All right, continue, sir.
So just as far as the OPEB plan is concerned, what we do there is to determine your liabilities. We use the 20-year municipal bond rates that are in effect on the valuation day. So because interest rates have been increasing and bond rates have been increasing, we saw that in December of 2021, we used a discount rate of 2.06 to determine your GASB disclosures for the OPEB plan. The 22, we used 4.31%. So we saw an increase in the discount rate to determine your liabilities of 2.25%, which led to a substantial decrease in the plan and the OPEB plan's liabilities for the year. So the liabilities as of the end of 2021 for the OPEB plan was about 228,000. It went down to about 228 million. Went down to 142 million, going from 21 to 22. And I said most of that is just driven by the fact that, you know, seeing those kind of increases in discount rates really does dramatically impact the plan's liabilities. And we see the expense that is that's being reflected for the OPEB plan in 21. It was 24.8 million, and in 22 it was 14.1 million. That's what I had as far as the OPEB plan goes. Any questions?
Any question among this panel? All right. Mr. Cardone?
All right,
Thank you,
very
sir.
much.
We'd like to receive this as information if there's no objections. Seeing there's no objections, we're receiving this. Madam Clerk, does that conclude our business for this pension meeting?
Yes, sir.
All right, this meeting's hereby closed out. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Give us just a few minutes to get the commission assembled, and we'll be ready to start in just a minute. We appreciate your patience. Appreciate you guys being here today. Thank you.
I know what you did. Had Charles Jackson call me again after we hung up. I knew that was you. I knew that was you. No.
almost a quarter after. It's time to go. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got enough. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here this afternoon. Thank you for braving the heat to see your government at work. Madam Clerk, I call this meeting to order.
Mr. Mayor and members of the commission, Commissioner Catherine McKnight is out of the county and would like to join the meeting through teleconference. And at this time, we will get her on the line.
Thank you, madam. Can you please confirm that she's outside of Richmond County?
Yes, sir.
Where? She's going to get on the phone. She's had the testimony.
Hello, Commissioner McKnight. Hi. Mayor Johnson has convened the meeting, and he would like you to acknowledge and affirm that you're out of the county.
Yes, I'm out of state.
You're out of state. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's continue.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you going to address the addendum agenda, sir? I think there's some items.
Yes, ma'am. Let's go ahead and address those. Obviously, there's some addendum items we need to address.
Can we do this without objection, or is it? Yeah. Okay. The addendum agenda has been adopted without objection.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Call your attention to the invocation portion of our agenda, which will be delivered today by Reverend Mark Trim, Senior Pastor, Church of Our Redeemer, Metropolitan Community Church, after which we would like to ask Commissioner Alvin Mason if he would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Mr. Mayor, commissioners, my fellow community members, will you join me this afternoon in prayer? Almighty God and loving Creator, we gather in this chamber of the people. We collectively ask for your direction and your presence in the proceedings today. May your wisdom be evident to each of us. We pray that clarity of direction will be with each decision made today, and that your peace will come as a result of right choices made for our city. As the business and growth for our city and community come before this governing body, may each be blessed with your spirit so as to further the prosperity of the people of Augusta and of our neighbors. As plans and ideas for the future are presented, may we be reminded of that true and great commandment to love our neighbor as ourselves, to do good among our people, to bring shelter for those in need, and create harmony wherever possible. May the decisions, the drive forward, never be lost upon this directive. May others be placed ahead of us. May self-centeredness be cast to the side, and partisanship, which creates great divide, be stepped beyond. We pray that beyond today and throughout the rest of this year, the plans of your Spirit will be revealed to each of us, guided by peace and empowered by your grace. We ask this with hope. We ask this drawing on your light. And we ask these things in faith, O God, expecting answers, and we thank you for your life given to us all. Amen.
Continue standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
moment. Pastor Trim, we would like to again thank you so very much for coming and sharing God's word with us to encourage us to do good to those that we serve. Thank you. By these presents be it known that Mark Trim, Senior Pastor, Church of Our Redeemer, Metropolitan Community Church, is chaplain of the day. May his spiritual guidance and civic leadership serves as an example for all citizens of Augusta. Given under my hand this 15th day of August, 2023, Garnett L. Johnson, Mayor. Again, thank you so very much.
Pastor Tram, thank you so much for being here, sir. We appreciate it. Madam Clerk, let's continue.
Call your attention to the recognitions portion of our agenda. The Augusta Commission would like to offer its congratulations to our 2023 July Years of Service 25 to 50-year recipients. Ms. Anita Rickard, our HR Director, will make the presentations.
Good afternoon, Mayor Johnson, Commissioners, and citizens of Augusta. It is my pleasure as the HR Director to recognize our July Years of Service recipients. For the month of July 2023, we had 23 employees celebrating 5 to 50 years of service. This afternoon, we'd like to recognize our 25 to 50 years of service recipients. For the month of July, the total years of service and institutional knowledge being celebrated today is 339 years. So when I call your name, please come forward. Michael Davis, Sheriff's Office, 25 years. Tommy Daughtry, Engineering Department, 50 years of service. I'm going to say that again. Mr. Daughtry with the Engineering Department, 50 years of service. Congratulations to our recipients for their years of service.
Mr. Daughtry, congratulations. 50 years is a long time to commit to this city. So on behalf of this commission and the mayor's office, we thank you and congratulations again. All right, Madam Clerk, let's continue with the recognitions.
Okay. Next, we would like to ask Ms. Raven Allen. Ms. Mayor, are you coming down?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If she would please come forward. Okay. Proclamation, Office of the Mayor, in recognition of Raven Allen Day. Whereas Raven Allen has been a Special Olympic Georgia Augusta Stars athlete since 2010. And whereas Raven loves sports, some of her favorite sports including kayaking, bowling, basketball, and volleyball. And whereas Raven has also participated in swimming, horseback riding, and bunts, all of which is enjoyed. And whereas Raven was a part of the USA kayaking team at Special Olympics World Summer Games, June 18th through the 24th, 200 meter, 4th place, 200 meter tandem, silver, 500 meter, bronze. And whereas Raven lives independently, she works at Augusta Developmental Specialist as a nursing assistant, has her learner's permit, and has been shopping for her first car. Whereas Raven is the first person in her family to travel outside the United States. And whereas Raven enjoys gardening and spending time with her 2 pet dogs, 4 cats, 1 turtle, and a kilo fish. And whereas Raven lives by 3 words, we can do other things. We can venture out and show the world what we can do. And now, therefore, it be resolved that I, Garnett L. Johnson, Mayor of the City of Augusta, do hereby proclaim August 14th as Raven Allen Day. In witness thereof, I have unto set my hand and caused the seal of Augusta, Georgia, to be affixed this 14th day of August, 2023. Congratulations, Ms. Raven. Our next recognition, Mr. Frank Anderson. Mr. Anderson? Okay. As he makes his way forward, City of Augusta proclamation in recognition of Frank Anderson of Aquinas High School. Whereas Aquinas High School is a Catholic college prep private school located in Augusta, Georgia. As a Christian school, they emphasize high morals and ethical standards and strive for an integration of spirit, mind, and body in each student. And whereas Frank started throwing discus and shot put in the 7th grade at Episcopal Day School, he is mostly self-taught, but enjoys working with Dr. Hal Hobbs. Dr. Hobbs voluntarily gives his time to coaching Frank in the throwing field events, even though his kids go to another private school in Augusta. And whereas the Aquinas track team is led by Coach Patrick Green, who is very devoted. During the spring, Frank competed as a member of the Aquinas High School track team and meet in the CSRA and often against other high schools that are much larger. Frank excelled in these events, shot put and discus, and loved getting in the heads of his competition. And whereas Frank's winning distance has shattered Aquinas High School records in both track and field events, during the spring 2023 track and field seasons at Aquinas, he won first place in discus at the regional meet, first place at sectionals, then first place in Columbus, Georgia, at the GHSA, Georgia High School Association, 1A D2 state championships with 149.9 feet, 15 feet further than the second place competitor. Frank also competed at the 1A D2 state track meet in shot put as he finished in 8th place at the sectional meet with qualifying distance of 42.6 feet. And whereas Frank qualified to compete at the Nike Track and Field Invitational in Bend, Oregon, held in June 2023. Frank is eager to return to compete as a senior in the 2024 track and field season. Frank is also a member of the Fighting Irish Aquinas football team and tennis team. He excels in the classroom with a 4.0 GPA. Go Irish. And now, therefore, it be resolved that I, Garnett L. Johnson, Mayor of the City of Augusta, do hereby proclaim August 15th as Frank Anderson Day. Congratulations.
Everybody, so Frank is a junior, he's a senior this year, so we have big expectations as a repeat state champion. If you don't mind, the Anderson family, you guys be represented, please stand up. Again, Ms. Raven, Mr. Allen, thank you so much for your contributions in representing the city of Augusta, not only at the Special Olympics, but in a high school track competition where we have an individual champion, so thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, one more round of applause before we move on to the next order of business. Madam Clerk, before we move on to the delegation portion, I've been requested to let's go ahead and do some cleaning up of this agenda, if you don't mind.
Sure. Let's go.
Let's move with the consent portion, please.
Consent agenda consists of items 1 through 46. Items 1 through 46.
All right.
Are we going to announce if there are any objectors, or are we just?
I've been told that they want to leave it on the agenda. They want to move forward to discuss it on the floor.
What? Discuss what on the floor?
7 and 8.
No, I'm not. You come
You
to
okay?
me.
All right, you got it. All right,
Take it off.
let's go to the commissioner from the 7th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to the citizens that showed up for 7-8, we do apologize, but we will not be discussing 7 and 8 today due to information not ready for prime time, traffic study, impact study, some things that are not ready from our department head as asked. So we will reconvene these items if the commission votes on it, I think, for September 5th. So September 5th, we're going to move those to the next full commission meeting, which is September 5th, 7 and 8.
Right.
I'd like to send 11 and 12 back to the administrator with the approval of the colleagues, and then I'd like to move to consent agenda item number 52.
All right, 7 and 8. There are no objections. Did I see what? Wait,
They
just
can't
a
object
second.
to what we're doing. They can't. They can't object to what we're
They
doing.
can't object. Can
Nope.
they speak? Not at this
Nope.
point. So 7 and 8. If you're here for the, let me make sure I'm clear for the
Let me
Parkers.
just, they
Can
may
you-
not
can
have
you- can you-
agendas. Let me read
Read
the
them, please.
caption.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Item number 7 is a request for concurrence at the Planning Commission to approve with conditions by Drayton Parker Companies, requesting a rezoning from a Zone A agriculture and a B1 neighborhood business to a Zone B2 general business affecting property at 3645 Wheeler Road. Item number 8 is a request for concurrence with conditions, a petition by Drayton Parker Companies requesting a rezoning from a Zone B1 neighborhood business to a Zone B2 general business affecting property located at 1924 Barton Chapel Road. These items are being referred to the first commission meeting in September. Are there any objectors that are supporters that you are now being advised on these items?
What?
Will the people that's here representing these two agenda items please stand up? They can't speak.
Wait, we haven't decided if we're any objections up here yet.
That's right. So
Yeah.
you guys.
We just wanted to make
You
sure
represent
that
the
they
neighborhood?
knew that the item has been deferred to the September 5th, 2023 meeting.
All right. Thank you, guys. May be seated. Or if they're going to leave, Madam Clerk, let's give them just a minute just to clear out, if you don't mind.
We haven't taken a vote yet, so they may want to stay.
Well, he said,
I'm still in the queue, so I haven't decided if I'm
okay,
going to
all
object
right.
to it or not.
You guys, you're something else. All right. Commissioner from the 7th, are you done, sir? All right. Hey, listen. I asked if they said they were. Well, there wasn't any.
Okay, since we're
All right.
we're deleting,
So we're removing 7 and 8,
and
11 and 12.
11 and 12 are being referred to the administrator.
And you
Number
mentioned
52, I believe he asked that it be added to the consent agenda.
all right. All right.
Is
Chair
that okay?
recognizes.
I still think this is premature to,
Well, listen, I agree. We asked for objectives. He said there was none.
Okay.
and I was in the queue waiting to be called on.
Chair recognizes the commissioner from the 4th.
I don't know. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 1 on planning, I really just need some clarity on that versus actually pulling it. If I could get some quick clarification, then I probably wouldn't need to pull it, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay. Mr. Mayor?
Pardon me. Can you repeat that, Commissioner? I'm sorry. I was.
On the consent agenda item planning number 1, if I could just get a quick clarification, I have a question, and I think I would be able to move it on without actually having to pull it and having a full discussion.
Commissioner, would you like that clarification now? Or would you rather for the?
If I could get it right now, I think we could continue moving on.
You got it, Commissioner. Director Malik.
The planning.
Is there planning? I'm sorry.
No, you stay there too. And I'm pretty sure you should know the question I'm about to ask here. We know that these 37 townhomes have been already planned for a good long time, but the issue that we've had here recently is who owns the retention pond that's there, and how did they end up flowing into Manchester subdivision? So I want to know who's responsible for that? Who's responsible for the cleanup of that? Whose name is that pond in? Who has the responsibility?
Well, planning and development researched it a little bit because we had some concerns, and we received an email from the Utilities and Engineering Department stating that the pond belonged to that Manchester subdivision. And if you check all of our records thus far, it says that the pond belongs to Manchester subdivision. Now, there may be more information, but that was the last that was communicated.
Director of Engineering, if I could, please. Same question.
Yes, sir. So, in that legal instrument, that this developer reserved the right to use the pond for the future use, and that's what he exercising that right. As far as the maintenance goes, I have to go read what that actually says, but since the developer is using it, he should be maintaining it.
I'm going to have to pull this.
All right, Madam Clerk, he wants to pull it.
Okay.
Pull number 1. All right, Commissioner from the 4th, you good?
No.
Okay. All right. All right. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 5th, Commissioner Williams.
Ms. Bonner, delete number 50.
Item number 50.
Yeah, just delete it.
Is there unanimous consent for deletion?
Is there any objection?
I'll bring it back if I need to.
Okay.
Any objections? If there are no objections, all right, Madam Clerk, noted. Commissioner from the 5th, are you
Hold
good?
on just a minute, Ms. Scott. Commissioner McKnight, I'm going to get with you. I'm listening. Who else?
All right, Commissioner Frampton.
Motion to approve as stated on the screen.
Wait a minute, hold tight.
Let me.
Hey, calm down. Everybody's jumping in the queue. Madam Clerk, floor is yours. There's something.
I'm just, okay, we need to, okay.
Madam Clerk.
Okay.
Is it?
What are you receiving a motion?
No, we haven't received a motion. We have other colleagues in the queue. All right,
Well,
Commissioner
these
from
are
the
the
5th,
items
you're still
that-
in the queue. Are you good, sir?
I'm good.
All right, Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 8th, Commissioner Garrett.
I was going to second Commissioner Franum's motion with my objection stating no on items 7 and 8. for removal.
All right.
Okay, Sean Frenham.
So there's
Brandon
an objection to
Garrett.
7 and
Okay,
8.
I believe Miss McKnight would like to speak, Mr. Mayor. She'd like to be recognized.
You got it. Chair.
Commissioner McKnight.
Thank you, Ms. Bonner. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm having a hard time hearing a little bit, but I just, when we go to do any kind of deletion, I wanted to make sure I pulled an item and push it to next week to engineering committee.
It's item number 53.
That's correct.
Move to committee.
It's on the back of our addendum agenda.
Okay.
It's number 6 on the addendum agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Number 6.
It's on the back.
6 on addendum.
We economized.
point
right.
of clarity, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I support that ask, but I have a question for clarity from Ms. Bonner. Should this item be on engineering or should it go to finance, being that it's a funding matter like we said last week?
It should be technically on finance.
Okay, can you ask Ms. McKnight to clarify to change to go to finance versus engineering?
I see a lot of consent
Commissioner McKnight,
Yes, ma'am.
it has been brought back to our attention that at the last Finance Committee was the consensus of the Finance Committee that all funding requests be referred to finance for consideration. Are you in concurrence with that for this item?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk. Commissioner Williams, you still in the queue? Commissioner Guilfoyle, you dropped out of the queue. You good, sir?
Yeah,
All right, Madam Clerk.
I got.
Okay,
yeah.
Commissioner Williams.
I see where you have an item on here about cutting schedule for easements, ditches, and drains. You know, we have a workshop scheduled. So do you still want to leave that on there?
You know, considering we do have a workshop, we can move that. We can delete.
You want
One
to
item,
delete
yeah.
item 51?
Yes, ma'am, I
Okay.
do. We receive a lot of calls, but we will refer to him that we do have a workshop committee. Thank you, Commissioner Williams. All right.
No, well, what I'll do, let me
We need to
read
clear-
out the agenda for clarification.
Okay.
Consent agenda. Mr. Frenham, Mr. Garrett, second. Item number 1 is being pulled by Commissioner Alvin Mason. Consent agenda. Item number 7, referred to the September 5th, 2023 commission meeting. Item number 8, consent, the September 5th, 23 planning meeting. Item number 10, deleted. Item number 11, referred to the administrator. Item number 12, referred to the administrator.
All right. Chair recognizes
see you
Commissioner
had a
from the
question.
10th. See you in the queue, sir.
Yes, it's a question for Ms. Bonner, Mr. Mayor. Did you say that the agenda item number 10 was deleted, Ms. Bonner?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Augusta Planning Development. Okay. Is that in error, sir?
I just
Okay.
wanted to mark it in my book to make sure.
Okay, all right.
All right. Madam
All
Clerk, I
right.
think we're prepared to vote. I did have a motion. Is there a second?
Well, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
that's what I'm saying. Are we going to announce the public services portion of our agenda dealing with alcohol petitions?
Yes, ma'am. Let's continue. with
Okay,
those.
all right. Call your attention to item number 13. Ms. Walton or Ms. Delaney? Oh, Ms. Walton's here? Yes. Okay. Item number 13 is a request for a retail package liquor, beer, and wine license to be used in connection with Liquor Locker at 214 Boy Scout Road. Are there any objectors to this alcohol petition?
Any objectors present?
Okay. Next item, number 14, is a request for an on-premise consumption liquor, beer, and wine license to be used in connection with another Broken Egg located at 1095 Alexander Drive, Suite 100. Are there any objectors to this alcohol petition?
Any objectors? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, let's continue.
Item number 15 is a request for a retail package beer and wine license to be used in connection with RK Food Mart located at 2618 Peach Orchard Road. Are there any objectors?
Any objectors? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, let's continue.
Item number 16 is a request for a retail package beer and wine license to be used in connection with Dane Daiquiri be doing business as Booze Pop located at 3062 Damascus Road. Are there any objectors?
Any objectors to this matter? Let's continue, Madam Clerk.
That's it for our alcohol petitions. So
All right.
our consent agenda will be consist of items 1 through 46.
Mr. Mayor.
When we pull number 1, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
it's 2.
Okay, let me get back because it's quite confusing here. Okay. Item 11 and 12 will be referred back to administration. It will remain on the consent agenda with that action request.
So it's item 2 through 46, correct? Because we pulled 1.
And then, well, that's on the regular agenda, but
Okay.
it's being added to the consent.
Okay.
Item number 50 being deleted. Item number 51 being deleted and referred to the work session. Is that where you're going to?
Yes, ma'am.
To the to be scheduled work session. Administrator. Item number 52 added to the consent, and item number 53 referred to the next finance committee.
Okay. All right. You got a motion? We have a second. No one's in the queue. We're ready to vote.
Yes, sir. She's here. You need to ask her. She's back on now. Are we voting?
You're voting, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Guilfoyle? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Oh. That arborist? Yes, ma'am. That was referred to the work session. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
I vote yes, except for item 31. We're going to be voting no on. Thank you.
Okay, item number 31.
Yes,
no?
ma'am.
Mhm. Ms. McKnight, how will you be voting, ma'am?
Yes.
On the consent agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Commissioner McKnight is voting yes on the consent agenda. That motion is unanimous. No, with the exception of item 33, Commissioner Guilfoyle voting no. 31. 31.
Voting no. All right. We have.
You're voting no on 7 and 8 to be deleted, sir? Okay. Yes.
No, you voted no.
Okay. And just for the record, item number F is also being deleted. That was on the addendum agenda, which was accepted. Okay. Are we headed for top to bottom, sir?
Yes, ma'am, but I think we're going to move back to our delegation portion. We're going back to delegation
Well,
portion.
that's the top.
Let's go. Let's go to the top. Let's go with it.
Delegation number C, Ms. Lynn Colbert, regarding state of homelessness and disability.
Ms. Colbert, are you in attendance? Ms. Cobbett? Last call. Ms. Cobbett.
Okay, that'll be
Madam
a
Clerk, let's
no-show.
continue.
Item number D, Mr. R. John Enos regarding food truck in downtown Augusta.
Mr. Ennis, are you present? Come on up, sir. Here he comes. Either one, your pick. There you go. Sir, while you are approaching, if you will, speak clearly into the mic, and for the record, I need you to state your name and address, please.
Good afternoon. My name is R. John Ennis, 2147 Eastside Court in Augusta.
Thank you, sir. You have 5 minutes.
I am one of the food truck owners in Augusta. I bought my home here. I live here. I've been selling downtown since from long before the pandemic. I have never had a problem down there. I recently started setting up at the SRP, which I have permission to set up there. A couple of weeks ago, I was told that by a policeman that I can't set up there anymore. So I asked why. He said because the city don't want any food truck here. I said, but I have permission. He said, what? And I showed him my thing. He said, well, you can stay there until we sort it out. He told me that if I don't, I must talk to SRP, and whatever happened, no, they will talk to SRP, and then they will get back to me. I went to SRP, but SRP said if the city is getting involved, they don't want to have anything to do with it. So I been here. This is where I'm only there Friday night and Saturday night. This is how I pay my mortgage. This is how I earn a couple of dollars. I tell you this quickly. When I was born, my mother was sick, and one of my aunts took care of me, I was told. And my mother told me that when God help you and you grow up and anything happened to your auntie, make sure you take care of her, because hadn't been for her, I don't know what would have happened to you. My aunt is now 95 years old. She lives in Jamaica, and I take care of her to the best of my ability. For the past 3-4 weeks, I haven't been able to send anything to her because I'm not here. And I cannot understand why I come, I sell, I go home, I pay taxes, I have all my, I have everything here from the city for me to work. Why can't I sell my food on Friday evening and Saturday evening? If you check the records, I have never had a problem all these years, from long before the pandemic. If there is someone that is giving problem, go after that person. But why do we have to, like we say in Jamaica, swap black dog for monkey? You know, why? I'm asking you to consider this and let me go back on Friday evening and sell my food so I can pay my bills and take care of my family. I need to pay my mortgage. I don't want to be homeless. I don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ennis. Just sit tight just a second. I have some colleagues that are in the queue, okay? So they may have questions. Chair recognizes the commissioner from the first, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, Mr. Ennis, thank you for being here. I've had your food from your food truck before, so thank you. It was delicious.
Thank you.
I've had a lot of calls about the food trucks in downtown, and I'm kind of confused as to how we even gotten to this point. This narrative that the city doesn't want them there is not a true narrative, because we haven't made a vote on food trucks at all. And I'll say that on the record. And to go a little bit further, I want to get some clarity from our planning director to see if there is any type of ordinance on the book that is prohibiting this from happening, what type of authority does the sheriff's office have over the commission, because you're not the only food truck owner that has brought this to our attention. So let me take that route. Let me hear from our planning director for a moment. And then if we need to come back and draw an ordinance or talk about, anything to this degree, I think this body could be prepared to do that. Okay, so let me hear from our planning director. Let us hear from our planning director, and then we can go from there. Mr. Mayor, if that's okay with you, sir.
That'll be fine, sir.
Thank you.
Director Delaney. Thank you, madam.
Good afternoon. We currently do have an active ordinance on the books for food trucks. I've not been made familiar with the situation that this gentleman speaks of. What I will say is that we have had some challenges throughout the county with food trucks parking in front of existing businesses in the right-of-way and operating within the right-of-way. That is a challenge that we face typically on the weekends and in the evenings when the nightclubs are closing. In regards to what I've just heard just now for the first time, I can only say that on private property, if he was completely on private property, it would be at the bank's discretion of whether or not he could be there. And in addition to that, he does still have to register with the Department of Health, have an active business license with the county. But these are all things I can look into as far as if he's meeting the regulatory guidelines as far as the county is concerned. What I can't do is give permission to use someone's private property or the right-of-way for a food truck service.
What
But I
I'll
can
say
field
is
any
that
other questions.
his food truck is in a parking lot. It's not on the right-of-way. There are some that's blocking the right-of-way, so I understand that. They're pulling up to the sidewalk and staying there. But this gentleman is in the parking lot.
Right.
And so does the sheriff office has the ability to tell this gentleman that he can't set up even though he has permission from SRP?
I can genuinely say I can't ascertain what the sheriff's parameters are. I can just tell you what the regulations that the county has in place, but I can't say what the sheriff can and can't do.
Okay, all right. I'll come out of the queue for now, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner from the 1st. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 8th, Commissioner Garrett.
Thank you, Mayor. And, sir, thank you for coming. And Ms. Delaney and I have had this conversation around food trucks just from different meetings that we've had around some that are parking on right-of-ways that are setting up in front of the brick-and-mortar restaurants that have invested heavily in downtown. And one of the things that I was told was that we do need to have commission action to move forward with formulating a better food truck policy and ordinance. And so I would like to ask Ms. Bonner to place this on the next committee cycle to have a discussion around formulating a food truck ordinance, especially for the downtown areas.
All right. Madam Clerk, is that noted? All right. All right. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 9th, Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Ennis, thank you for coming today and also bringing this up to, I think it's two years ago, we was in a meeting, a bunch of clowns, I think we was called, about trying to put something together. And so I think it's now time to put something on the book and make sure everybody have equal opportunity to sell their foods and make a living in our city. We don't need to make it hard or difficult for people who's trying to make a living, but we need to make sure it's fair to all.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Ennis, thank you for being here, sir. Director Delaney, thank you so much. All right, Mr. Ennis, you got about 20 seconds.
Yeah, well, I am glad about that you clear this up because we've been cussing you on because we were told that I'm just telling you, we've been told that you in the middle of the night pass this ordinance and then kick us out. And we came down there with our truck, my truck filled with food, and they tell me I gotta go.
That's right. So, Mr. Ennis, let me just give you the brick and mortar restaurants' concern about that, and that they have invested sometimes millions of dollars in creating a food front, and your investment in a food truck sometimes hinders their business in our downtown. So that's the only concern with it. We just, as a body, need to come up with an ordinance so it's fair to everybody. So, and understand that the restaurants that you were parked in front of, they've invested a lot of money for those restaurants, and they're concerned about, I guess, you with a food truck having an impact on their business. So that's something that we need to address as a body to make sure it's fair and equitable across the spectrum.
I don't sell anything that they sell. Nothing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And
right.
if I can't for now,
right.
Can I park in front of the Commons on Friday night and Saturday night? until you sort this thing out with permission.
We can't make that decision until after we have this discussion as a body. Okay, so just give us a chance to sort it out. We support small business. We support you. We just got to make sure it's fair and equitable to everybody.
Do you need my number so you can call me?
We're going to take care of you. We're going to take care. Write your number down.
Yep. But Mr. Ennis, thank you for being here, sir. I promise you, we'll figure it out as a body. Yeah. Can you come to our committee meeting to make sure that you can contribute to the dialogue as we talk about this? All right, you got it. All right, Mr. Johnson will be in touch with you from the first, but thank you again, okay? Thank you. All right. Madam Clerk?
Okay, so the action relative to item D made by Commissioner Garrett, is that being accepted without objection, is to refer this to the next committee?
Are there any objections? Seeing none?
Okay. Approved without objection. Okay.
Without objection.
Ms. McKnight, are you okay with that? Ms. McKnight?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Item number E, Mr. Moses Todd regarding the Citizens City Cemetery Committee and Ed Matthews, Friends of Cedar Grove, to address cemetery needs, including road capital outlet, SPLOS 8, $600,000.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Todd, as always, thank you for being here, sir. For the record, please state your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Moses Todd, 2747 Deansbridge Road. Mr. Mayor, I'm chairman of the Citizens Cemetery Committee. I kind of inherited this position from former Commissioner Jerry Brigham in 2018 when the committee was planning the bicentennial for Cedar Groves and Magnolia cemeteries. So we are fast forward. The bicentennial was, like co-sponsored by Isle of Augusta, a nonprofit that I run. So fast forward, after the bicentennial, the cemetery committee during COVID met in the Deputy Administrator's office, Charles Jackson, to discuss capital funds for the cemetery and to discuss the perpetual care and whether the perpetual care had been converted to general care of the cemeteries. We walked away with the understanding that there was no more perpetual care, that it was general care, and that we would sort out the ADA funds and forestization funds that was in special purpose local option sales tax 7, that most of it had gone to the recreation department, recreation and parks. We did get clarification on those funds. Moving forward, in Splash 8, representing the cemetery committee, I made the meetings and discussions, workshops on Splash 8, or Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax 8, and we requested $200,000 per cemetery. Well, we got $200,000 per cemetery in Splash 8. We requested a great deal more, but it was up to the discretion of the commission, and we respect that. It's my understanding, Mr. Mayor and commissioners, that we're collecting ahead of schedule on the special purpose Splash 8, and the money is in the bank for capital outlay for the 3 cemeteries. There seemed to be some confusion, like there always is when it comes to the cemeteries, on what the money was supposed to be for. Well, I Love Augusta, the cemetery committee, lobbied for, advocated for it to be for a capital outlay, and that would include roads. We understand that $200,000 is just a fraction of what's needed for Cedar Groves as far as repairing the roads.
Magnolia have a more complicated situation with the roads in that we have the 200-year magnolia trees that we got to figure out how to shave the roots down to smooth out everything and to do that project. So I would like to see this commission authorize the Parks and Recreation, or whomever it need to be, to start on fixing potholes in Cedar Groves and to resurface the main road into Cedar Groves. The other project that I'd like to see happen, and I'm not sure that can be done with special purpose local option sales tax money, is the wall that's collapsed on Magnolia at Taylor Street and 2nd Street. We would like to see funds for that. If we can't do it out of special purpose local option sales tax, then let's do it out of our contingency funds. We need to get the wall back up, so we don't have folks going in, doing damage in Magnolia. We immediately need to get the temporary fence up so this is not happening. This wall is a historical brick wall. It's not as simple as just going in there with a brick mason crew and doing the job. But through Historic Augusta, which Mr. Eric Montgomery serves on the cemetery committee, and the help of the individuals that do restoration work at St. Paul's Church, we can do this. In the next 3 to 6 months, this can happen. I want to address the maintenance and upkeep of the cemeteries. As most of you know, you were here last year doing the budget hearings and workshops when I appeared before this commission and requested 6 additional employees for the cemeteries. And it was recommended by the interim administrator and the commission that we continue to use the inmate labor to do this work, and also to transfer that responsibility from the Recreation Department to Warden Joseph. I'm here to tell you that that plan haven't worked. Last year this time, we had a situation where the cemeteries was overgrown. I Love Augusta brought in volunteers, or paid volunteers, to help with Section 20. We made a request through Commissioner Scott and Judge Walker for community service help. That's been approved and put under the direction of Judge Bohanna. It's just a matter of bringing it all together. I'm going to be at the budget hearing this year, making a request again for additional help. Now, we can still do it with the inmate labor, but yes, sir. But we definitely need to put some funds in the budget so when we have this rainy seasons, dog days of summer, that we can put some contractors in there to help. So that's my plea. I will also be at your special purpose local option sales tax workshops to advocate for additional funds for the cemeteries. I want to go on record of thanking Deputy Administrator Jackson for his help, Commissioner Scott for her help, and even Commissioner Lewis has even offered to volunteer to bring in his colleagues that's in the yard cutting business or the grass cutting business, in the private sector, in to help. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Todd. I appreciate it. Stay there. I have a couple of colleagues in the queue, but before I call them, I'm going to ask Director McDowell to come up for just a minute. We're going to talk about the wall, but the chair recognizes Commissioner from the 5th, Commissioner Williams.
got one or two things that I need to say, but I think who's in charge of cemeteries? The prisoners out at with Director Evan Joseph. The warden is
The warden. That's the reason. That's the reason we need to centralize it. No one knows.
who. So is that you, Director McDowell?
So, good afternoon, Commissioner, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
So last year, during the, I think Mr. Mosley Todd mentioned this, the decision was made by the administrator at the time to move all grass cutting under RCCI. So RCCI is responsible for the maintenance of all our cemeteries currently.
Okay, I got one or two things I need to say, but I think I can say them directly to Mr. Joseph. I won't say them here.
Thank you, sir. Director McDowell, the reason I asked you to come up, the brick wall that's on Taylor Street, is there any way we can get that budgeted or fixed? Because that is a concern.
So what we did is put up a temporary fence there to keep people from going in and out that's not an access point. But I think to Mr. Todd's point, it's not as simple as you think it is. It's protected by the Historic Society. So there's certain things we have to do in order to repair it. There's certain bricks that we have to bring in to repair that area. We've gotten a quote to get it fixed. It's about $4,000, but the contractor warned us that it's not gonna resolve this issue. The entire fence brick is gonna fall at some time because it was poorly constructed on the onset. So we'll fix this problem, and there's gonna be numerous problems following that. So to be good stewards of tax dollars, we gotta look at this holistically.
Okay.
And figure out what's the best path forward, because we can fix this section, but there's gonna be other sections that have the same issue based upon the way this fence was constructed. But also what complicates this issue is we do have to consult the Historic Society because that area is protected to get their buy-in and their weigh in on these decisions prior to even making those decisions.
All right. Thank you, Director. All right, Mr. Todd, thank you for being here today, sir. Appreciate it. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
I saw Mr. Guilford drop out. Commissioner Lewis, my apologies. You have the floor, sir.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Director McDowell.
Yes, sir.
Having heard you speak on the importance of not wasting money to repair this wall, believing that in the future there's going to be more disrepair, can we not do a cost estimate while we're dealing with the Historical Society to see what it would cost to fix the wall and fix the wall right?
Absolutely, Commissioner, to your point.
Can we just have that as information? So
Right.
moving forward, if Mr. Todd comes back before this body and make a request based on his actions of our next SPLOST to make sure that these monies are there, I don't want to see this part of Augusta's history be in disrepair like it is. I understand the temporary fix that you have now, and I understand $4,000 is just going to put a Band-Aid on it, but let's see what it would cost to fix the wall.
That is exactly
linear.
that is exactly what we're doing. We're assessing that situation. I met with Mr. Todd out there last week. We looked at Cedar Grove. We talked about the wall as well. So we're having these conversations. So we try to keep him up to speed as to where we are as we move forward making decisions. But again, to your point, that's exactly what we're doing. We're looking at the cost holistically based on the funds we do have available. I think there's $600,000 in SPLOST 8, but it's $200 per cemetery. That's not nearly enough to do anything as it relates to that wall. We could spend that entire $600,000 on a section of the wall. So we got to be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars because we got to take care of Cedar Grove, Magnolia as well. So that's why when we have these conversations, we want to make sure that we bring you all the best information back so you can make sound decisions based on the issues that we have and trying to make these decisions, because it's not as easy as going out and repairing the wall.
I understand. Thank you. It's not pragmatic. So I understand, and others may not, that don't understand construction, may not understand, think it's an easy fix, but it's definitely not an easy fix.
No, and the contractor that we did have to assess it told us it was poorly constructed on the onset.
We have a few more colleagues in the queue. Commissioner from the 5th.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one comment. I know we're going to have a workshop. We're going to talk about these different things that we need to do as far as grass cutting and what we need to look at as far as the plan is concerned. But I think one thing that we lack that we need to include, we need to inspect what we expect. In other words, you know, when we send somebody out to cut something, we need to send somebody, I don't know if we need to hire somebody or task one of the directors, administrators, or somebody to go out and take a look at what's been done, because one of the things I do want to talk about, I've gone by some places that were cut, but the grass was all over the place. The grass was in the streets. Stuff was left laying around and what have you. So you got people out there that are doing the job, but they're halfway doing the job. So in order to make Augusta look beautiful, we need to not only cut the grass, but whatever we do with what we cut needs to be done away with. So I'll leave that to our workshop, and I think we're going to get some good things out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the 1st, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question while we're on this topic. I know Commissioner Todd mentioned a few things. We went straight to the gate over at Magnolia, but I want to go back to Cedar Grove for a quick moment. When we asked Warden Joseph to take over this responsibility, did we fund that ask as well? And I guess that would be a Ms. Bonner question. Did we fund the warden in his department taking over that?
On this one, but we can certainly check our records and let you know.
Okay, because the thing is, if we didn't fund it, then there isn't much that we should expect, right?
Well, from what I understand, he said the administrator.
Okay.
That was action taken by the administrator, so.
Okay, so can we get an update?
Sure.
So to that question, so that the funds that were allocated for maintenance for cemeteries were removed from Parks and Recreation and put under RCCI.
And so how the 600,000?
No, not the capital improvement, but the operational cost.
How much was that?
Don't quote me on how to get you those numbers, but they took it from our budget and put it on the RCCI.
Okay, we'll get an update and figure that out, because if they need additional staff or anything, then we need to have that discussion as a body. And I don't remember any authorization of those dollars being moved, so let's get that if you don't mind. Thank you, Ms. Bonner.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 10th, Commissioner Giffel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, this is for Moses Todd. Moses, I understand that it was delegated to Warden Joseph. A lot of things have been delegated to Warden Joseph. The engineering department relies heavily on them, and the challenge that Mr. Joseph has, they usually have 25 groups of prisoners go out every single day. Now they down to 5. The problem is we had a retreat at ASU, and we was fortunately able to speak with all the directors with the challenges that they face. Mr. Joseph Warden's challenge is that finding post-certified people in order to run the crews to have the work done. To me, the simple solution was to raise the wages for the post-certified to attract them. Go after the military, the retired MPs, and offer them a package that's that they would like and would come to work for Augusta Richmond County, the RCCI. But when you're working at 1/5 of the operation that you normally accustomed to running 25 crews and you only got 5, it's hard to get everything done. One thing that I do find out with departments, we should be able to do preventive maintenance, but some reason we always find out afterwards we having to fix things at a lot more cost. So I think during that meeting that we're going to have, I think what we're going to need to do as a body is to look out of paying our post-certified people more money in order to get these crews back out. And that would solve a lot of problems for us behind this dais.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I want to apologize for not saying that Allstate said that Mr. Matthews had to be in Boston today to a memorial. He couldn't be here. And The privilege of being here instead of back of the dais is that I don't have to worry about, I look at the big picture, but I have to worry about the small picture, and that's the cemeteries. And, you know, we're felling our dead, so to speak. And I appreciate everything that this commission, the administrator's office has done, Warden Joseph has done, but I'm here to tell you that it is not enough. And perhaps we need to have a workshop on the cemeteries. The cemetery responsibility, as far as the state commission on cemeteries and mortuaries, is not a citizens committee responsibility. It's your responsibility, Mr. Mayor, and the commission. So please, let's give more attention. And then as far as the wall being poorly constructed, it was constructed over 200 years ago. I'm sure that it was poorly constructed compared to the capabilities of bricklayers today. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Todd. I agree with you in that we have a rich history in both Cedar Grove and Magnolia cemeteries, and we certainly could do better in the upkeeping of both facilities. All right, no one else in the queue, Madam Clerk. Let's move with our last delegation item, please.
Mr. Dan Scott.
Mr. Dan Scott, are you present? Come on up, sir.
Mr. Dan Scott is here regarding landscape, groundskeeping, and technician apprentice program.
If you have handouts, please pass them to our Madam Clerk, if you don't mind. She will make sure that we get them. You have enough copies for everybody? Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Scott, please, for the record, please state your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes, sir.
My name is Dan Scott. I live at 1723 Cornell Drive. Today's delegation is basically a simple update from an apprenticeship project, which I proposed to the Augusta Commission on October the 15th, I think it was 2019. I'd also like to dedicate this delegation to Miss Elizabeth Thompson of the Albion Acres community. She lost her life to an intruder on October the 15th, 2019 at her house on Kennedy Drive off Olive Road in District 1. Ms. Thompson was 82. So after 4 years, a pandemic and research, today on August the 15th, 2023, I'd like to share with the Commission and the citizens of Augusta, Georgia, the progress of this project, its advantages, and the challenges that I have found. In regards to the progress, this program has basically secured approximately up to $68,000 in training costs and up to $60,000 in pre-apprenticeship capital towards wages to support 10 landscape and groundskeeping management opportunities for adults, at-risk youth, dislocated workers, the disabled, unemployed, and homeless in Augusta, Richmond County, Georgia. These opportunities are made possible through our training provider partnerships and the consistent efforts of a few self-determined residents of the Glendale Historic Preservation Committee. One of those residents is Ms. Joray Jenkins. She lives in that community, and she's adamant about the infrastructure of that community. Today, I am sharing this update in hopes that the information can help accelerate and scale progress towards reducing the effects of urban decay and crime while creating jobs within underserved communities such as Glendale and Albany Acres. So far, as we can see after 4 years, and the smoke is cleared, and the evidence of certain challenges which residents in Glendale face still linger. This is due to our lack of knowledge of environmental laws, city ordinances, and rights as tax-paying citizens to take effective legal actions on behalf of our community. This apprenticeship program pretty much would also help teach residents some of these things. Our communities truly are perishing for their lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge leads to lack of wisdom. This lack of wisdom has led to a lack of understanding. And, this lack of understanding basically has led to the reason why we fail to respond effectively to situations regarding blight, stormwater, infrastructure issues, and the social economic disparities of this community. For example, since 2019, the infrastructures of Glendale, Albion Acres, and nearby communities within District 1 have continued to decline due to our lack of support for skilled labor and opportunities for residents to access the city's on-call budget to respond to their community circumstances. Let it be clear, I'm not here requesting money for a special event, a party, a group, security, or to temporarily entertain the plight of our people with B-list celebrities and pagan celebrations. I'm simply asking the Garden City to cast this information as a better seed to help cultivate the mental landscapes that help motivate able bodies to transition from their lack of knowledge to an abundance of wisdom and understanding through the fruits of apprenticeship labor. Basically, the picture can show you a stormwater drain in the Glendale community. We have many of these stormwater drains, and all of them look this way. The curves are overgrown, houses, dilapidated. So I would like to use this apprenticeship program to kind of get some of these guys off the street that's in the community, transition them from what they're doing to basically working in the communities and helping improve our situation. If you guys could send us referrals for individuals through some of your organizations, we're looking for eligible and suitable people. We've had this apprenticeship since probably late last year, September, when it was approved, but we have yet to receive one eligible person or suitable person. That's it. If you have any questions,
Mr. Scott, thank you so much. I have a commissioner in the queue, but my question to you is, one, I want to applaud you. As I understand, you've secured $68,000 in training and another $60,000 for pre-apprenticeship. Are those dollars that you've secured?
Those dollars that I've secured, but I can't put my hands on them because I don't have a person that can work. This was, I think, Mayor Davis had approved this through a workforce board, and ever since then, basically, I've discovered that people didn't even know that they could go before it's the CSRA Regional Commission, and it's WIOA funds, Workforce Investment Opportunity Act funds. They've locked me in at 10. They've capped me at 10 people. I would like those 10 people to be from the community. These people, that we're saying, we got homeless out here, we got at-risk youth. They can be students, and the only thing that's keeping me from accessing the $68,000 is $6,800 per person. This pay for training costs. That's it. It doesn't pay for wages. The other $60,000 is courtesy of a work experience program that the CSRA Regional Commission has never tried because their funding is mostly for youth. So I asked the CSRA Commission, can we apply some of these work experience funds to an adult work experience, which would help cover the first 3 months of the apprenticeship program. The apprenticeship program is 12 months. Those first 3 months is what the sum of $60,000 would add up to. The wages will range from like $12.50 up to $16.67. But if you base it off $12.50 times 40 hours a week times 4 weeks and 3 months, you'll get probably about $60,000 for those 10 people. If we could just get 5, and with these funds, with WIOA, I believe other businesses in the community need to understand that these funds will allow them to be reimbursed 50% of the wages. But we don't have businesses that are capable of hiring because, most of the businesses are focusing on what's important to them. What's important to me is I want to see some individuals in my community that's hanging out. I want to see some of these cats working. Let's clean up some of these curves. You have an on-call budget, but it's if we don't have the knowledge of how to access that or tap into that, we can't make any type of progress. The on-call budget itself will help offset some things that we have, but we have infrastructure in place for training costs and for the first 3 months. The next 9 months, I have to figure out how to come up with those funds to pay individuals, but I do know that for those 9 months, I can reimburse through our training provider contract. We can reimburse on a monthly basis 50% of the wages.
About this, talking to some of our unions in Richmond County, because this is exactly what we need. We need a grassroots type of effort to clean the city up and then also address some poverty that's going on. We talk about the store and the loitering over in Glendale. if folks had something to do throughout the day, then that wouldn't be the case. So this is helpful. Have you been in touch with any of the unions in town or any type of other like nonprofits to help get this thing off the ground?
No unions, because what I've discovered is that most of the unions support what the industries that they support. If it's electrical or other industries, but this is particularly agriculture, urban ag, landscaping. So I haven't come across any that actually would support something like this.
Okay.
As far as nonprofits, I am Kingdom Full Gospel is the church that has reached out to me, to help remediate some issues around their church, but also help them with a community garden. These places, I have like about 7 sites. I have a muscadine farm out in Hetzeba. They got 25 rows of muscadines they need help picking, but this is what I would take individuals, these are places I would take them to get this training, and these spaces also could be considered and looked at as related training instruction spaces. And I spoke with the land bank. Yeah. I spoke with Sean Edwards and asked him, could we utilize some non-conforming properties as related training instruction spaces, because it's because we're cleaning up. So you're creating jobs and you're helping the city, address some of these problem properties at the same time.
Sure.
So these individuals can be placed anywhere, but I want to centralize them on at least a pilot project so we can show some progress and so give these people some hope, in these communities.
Well, I appreciate you, and for the sake of time, I'll just keep following up with you, and I'm sure some of my colleagues will as well, because if we can make this program successful, of course, I'll follow up with you, because again, like I said, I think this is a pretty good program. I think it's a pretty good program. Thank you for your advocacy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 9th, Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Scott, for coming. And I'm over in both of these neighborhoods all the time because we did neighborhood beautification monthly yard program. And I'm surprised because I did not know anything about the program. So, when we're in a box and just a few people know about your program, it gets stagnated, and you come before us and tell us that funds have already been allocated and that type of stuff. So, Mr. Jackson, I would like to hear more, not now, but could you please get some more information from Mr. Scott about this program?
Certainly, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott.
Mr. Scott, Commissioner Scott, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
No relations or relations? No relations. All right. Madam Clerk, I think that concludes our delegation portion of this meeting. Now we're prepared to move forward with our agenda.
The first item 1, Commissioner Alvin Mason requested that this item be pulled. It's a request for concurrence with the Planning Commission to approve townhomes at Diamond Lakes, a petition by Southern Partners on behalf of Cole Beasley Homes, requesting a final plaque approval for townhomes at Diamond Lakes located at 1000 Rosendale Drive.
All right. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, let me make this very clear. Myself nor the Homeowners Association at Manchester has any desire to disapprove townhomes at Diamond Lakes. That's not what this is about in any way, shape, or form. What we do want to know is who has the authority or who owns the pond. Because if it's the Manchester Homeowners Association that owns the pond, it has been brought to my attention by the Manchester Homeowners Association that they would like to deed that to the city. And so that's the only question here. I'm trying to get a resolution as to who actually has the ownership, and if in fact it's Manchester subdivision. They have made it clear to me that they would like to deed that to the city, and the city accept that if in fact Manchester is the owners of the pond. So I guess we just need to know who is the owner of the pond.
Director Delaney.
Good afternoon again. And I apologize. Initially, I said utilities and engineering. It was just engineering. We got communication from engineering that the pond belonged to Manchester. We also did a preliminary search at the courthouse to see who owned the property. That preliminary search showed that the pond was owned by Manchester subdivision. So, but with that being said, planning doesn't take a position on some of these legal and civil matters. Once engineering deemed that it met the criteria, it moved out of our purview. But we did do some preliminary research in that regard, and we did find documentation that said that it was the property of Manchester. But I don't know. I can't say that we were exhaustive and got every document, because that's not our specialty.
Okay. If in fact, let's just hypothetical right here. If in fact that is the way that it is, it's Manchester, then Manchester certainly has the authority or the right to ask or deed it over to the city?
Typically, engineering would collaborate with the developer to determine maintenance agreements and things of that nature, and how the process for deeding it to the city would work.
Mr. Mayor, can we bring up the engineering chair? I mean, I'm the engineering chair. Can we bring up the engineering director?
Certainly can. Dr. Malik?
Dr. Malik.
Good afternoon.
Is that your contention as well, Dr. Malik, that Manchester subdivision, homeowners association owns the pond?
But the same, yes, sir. But the same token, the way it's deeded, the developer reserves the right to use the pond.
Well, I'm not talking about use. Nobody's questioning who can use it and who can't. We're talking about who has the ownership so that it can be properly cared for. And in many situations, and I'm sure you know this already, generally speaking, a pond will be deeded over to the city if the city would accept. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're not talking about use. We're not trying to stop anybody from using anything. We simply want to know if we have the authority and the pond is within Manchester Homeowners Association, it is Manchester's intent to deed it over to the city. Is that a problem?
Well, then the developer also has to release the rights to the city. And developer representative is here, so Joe.
So there's co-ownership?
I mean, if they keep maintaining the rights, then we cannot maintain the pond, because whenever they have a need, like if they're developing another section in that subdivision, they can come back and use the pond the way they're doing now. So right now it's using as a construction pond, so they are fully responsible to upkeep and maintenance of this pond till that development is done. And once that development is done, then we can initiate their process for city to take over the pond.
Well, when you say they're fully responsible, but the Manchester Homeowners Association got the letter from the city saying we were responsible, we're about to be fined because we hadn't did what we're supposed to do. So, so where are we here?
So we can look at that letter. Probably there may be misunderstanding that they didn't know this deed, how the deed is written, and how the pond is being used. So.
And I'm not trying to make a big issue. And again, we're not talking about who can use it and who can't. Just trying to find out who's responsible. And from the Manchester Homeowners Association standpoint, if in fact it belongs to Manchester Homeowners Association, they have a desire to deed it over to the city.
I think, excuse me for interrupting, but Dr. Malik, you're saying that it's on the developer until they finish their development, and then they have the ability to either accept it or help. Is that what you're saying?
Under current condition, yes, sir, yes.
So it's under the developer as now, but after the development is completed, it reverts to the homeowners association. But in this case, the homeowners association does not want it. They're wanting to know if they can then deed it to the city.
Yes, sir, yeah. So we can initiate that process at that time.
At what time?
Once the developer stops using this pond as a part of this ongoing construction.
Okay, just want to get a little bit more clarity. I see Joe's out there. He's, we're waving back and forth at each other. Can we bring Joe Galino up?
Sure. Is Joe the developer?
Yes.
Yes, sir. We certainly can.
Pick a side, Joe. Pick a
Pick
side.
a side.
Right.
Welcome, sir. I would ask for the record, please state your name and address, please.
My name is Joseph Bonino, Vice President of Land Development for Bill Beasley Homes, 7009 Evanstown Center Boulevard, Evans, Georgia.
Thank you, sir.
The pond belongs to the Homeowners Association of Manchester. That is the person who owns it. My responsibility as a developer is I have to maintain it in terms of my permit, my NOI, while I'm developing the property and then while we're building the townhomes. When I'm done, I will apply for an NOT, which is a notice of termination. I send it into Augusta. They'll come out, make sure I've met my stabilizations, and then my responsibility as a developer, I'm done. Now, for Augusta to take it, that would be up to your engineering department. You got to do an inspection. It's got to meet your criteria. Some of the problem you have is when you have water quality, you guys may not take it. I mean, so we have to deed it over to an HOA. That's how it normally works now. Whatever Manchester wants to do with it, that's fine. But probably for the next 2 years or so, I'll be responsible for the maintenance. So whatever letter the HOA got, I'm not sure when that came. Usually Mr. Dick calls me immediately when he gets
Well, he's no longer a part of the leadership there, but
that's probably why I didn't get home.
Probably. But okay, so and this is a good lesson learned here, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure that this is probably not a new thing. So all parties involved, to include our own department, should have some knowledge of how all of this works, so that would prevent us from getting to this particular point. So you're saying it's going to be a couple of years before the townhomes are finished, probably 2025, something like that.
But I'm also required to send into engineering a maintenance, for lack of a better word, agreement, saying this pond, even if it's owned by Augusta, if I'm dumping stormwater, using it for sediment control, then I have to maintain it. I wouldn't call, hey, you guys, come clean out your pond. I'm the one that put the silt there. So I have to send that in, and I believe we have done that.
Okay, and so we basically, as you're saying, can't really, from the homeowners association standpoint, can't do anything until you're complete.
Oh no, you can. They can deed it over anytime they want. I still got my responsibility, whether it's to Manchester or whether it's to Augusta.
Okay.
I'm still responsible, no matter how you look at it, for the next whatever years that may be.
Roger that.
Hopefully quick.
Looks like he had something to add to that. Hopefully it's not contradictory.
Dr. Malik?
No, it's not contradictory. This situation is kind of unique, where a developer kept the right to use the pond, and that's what the problem is coming. So we'll work through it to resolve it, because once city take over the pond, it becomes a stormwater pond, and we maintain it accordingly. When developer come back and want to reuse it, they convert stormwater pond to sediment pond, and that's a totally different requirement, and that's what we got to resolve, this maintaining the right, because he has another section, or the developer, if the way deed is written, and they have legal right to come back and convert this pond into sediment ponds, it's going to be going back and forth.
But at this point,
So-
the townhouses are the last part that will go into that pond from my company. Now, there's property
Sir,
above
make
us.
sure you're speaking into the mic so
I'm
we can.
sorry.
Okay.
Whether there's property above us that will use that pond, that's going to be up to that homeowner or developer or whatever. I have no other sections in Manchester that are going to go to that pond. This is it. I don't know if that helps.
Well, I'm certainly a little bit more clear, and if I'm not mistaken, there's a number of individuals that are watching this that are in Manchester right now at this point, because I'm getting all kind of texts. Just trying to figure out where we're at here. So we do want to have a resolution. That is the intent of the Manchester Neighborhood Association, is to, their intent is to try to deed it over to the city. And so whatever steps or processes that we need to do, and when we need to do that, I guess we'll get together and figure that out. But that's something that we need to discuss and come up with a resolution, because the Manchester Homeowners Association does want to relinquish that and deed it over to the city.
Yes, sir.
you're going to find that this is not a unique situation. This is happening with ponds that are considered water quality or wet ponds. Municipalities don't want them. You don't take them. Not just Augusta, Columbia County does too. So you deed them over to the HOA when I'm done developing. It is something that you're going to have to think about as time goes on.
Futuristic. Okay. Yeah, and that's the other point that I was trying to make. So I have a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve
Thank you.
and a second. Madam Clerk, seeing no colleagues in the queue, no further discussions.
We're voting?
We're voting.
Okay. Ms. Garrett's out. Mr. Bobby Williams? Okay. Ms. McKnight, how are you voting on this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
That motion carries with Mr. Garrett out.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's move to the next matter.
I think that would take us to item 47, hopefully. Item 47 is a presentation of the draft comprehensive plan.
It's me again.
Director Delaney.
All right. See if I can take it to full screen. All right. So,
Delaney.
yes. I was.
Director, we're ready.
No, I was.
Oh,
pulling
you're
it up.
waiting. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I'm loading it. All right. There we go. All right. So good afternoon. I'm Carla Delaney, and I'm with the Planning and Development Department, and I get to serve as the director. One of the things that the Planning Development Department is tasked with is creating the comprehensive plan. It is a plan that is forward-facing, and it thinks about the next 20 years of development in the county. Okay? So I'm going to go through these slides. I don't want to cheat you, but I will move quite briefly because I am considerate of the time. All right. So the comprehensive plan serves as a guide for the future development and growth of Augusta, Richmond County, and it is a plan for sustainability and preservation. It is done for multiple reasons, and it is very important for the people who conduct business here and the people who live here to know where the community is going and how it's going to address future challenges with regards to infrastructure, funding, and then just quality of life issues. So we're looking at a 20-year planning horizon. The Planning and Development Department puts this together. They do it through a series, we do it through a series of public meetings. During those public meetings, what we do is we ascertain the community's desire and appetite for certain developments, and we determine and try to figure out which ones we think the city can accomplish, and we turn that into a comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is supposed to be both vague but ambitious and still point to a couple of winning ideas. So that is how we are progressing with the comprehensive plan. All right, so the basic framework of our comprehensive plan is we pretty much answered the main questions with regard to development and throughout the document. So in your packet, you have all 100 plus pages, and then I'm going to go through just quickly a couple of the most important items. But the basic questions that the comprehensive plan asks and answers are: where are we now as a city and county? Where are we headed? Where do we want to go? And how do we get there? So that is the overall, those are the sections that the comprehensive plan is broken down into. A couple of things before I go too fast or too far is we look at some statistical data and we look at qualitative data to determine what is going on in our community and where we stand and how we should move forward. So we start with the where are we now, and we look at things such as population. We have pretty much a good split on the population with regards to the male to female ratio. One of the things we also have here in Richmond County is a good split with regards to the age of our population. If you look over here, you'll see we have 26% under 19, 23%, 23%. So we have a good representation in general for our male, female, and our general population by age. one of the main things we always talk about are population projections, and you hear this a lot. And so in looking at Richmond County, you also have to look at all of the counties adjacent to us. So on the screen now, what you are seeing is what our percent and population change will be. One of the things you will notice is the counties, if you look all the way to the right where it says percent change, you will notice right here where you'll see what all of the counties are ranking at. You'll see that Richmond County is coming in right here at 4.9% of a population change projected from 2025 to 2035. So what you'll also notice is the counties that are growing a little bit faster than us or projected to grow faster than us. So you'll see that only one county is projected to experience a net loss in their population. But with that being said, you can notice here, we're not too far from behind where we should be in the state of Georgia. So Georgia as a state is growing at 6.7%, and Richmond County is looking at about a 4.9% change. Columbia County is up here at 9.7%. One of the other major topics that we look at in regards to population is housing. Where are people going to live? So we are looking at the critical role that the comprehensive plan is playing in identifying needs for housing. Every week we talk about housing concerns and challenges with building new homes. So the number of homes built in Richmond County versus the number of units and things of that, these are all statistics that we look at. Right here, you'll see that in 2021, we had 91,578 family residential units. So one of the things we look at is how that number is growing. And you can see from 2010 to 2021 that we've experienced a substantial increase in the number of residential units. The other thing you want to take into consideration is the type of home occupancy in Augusta, Richmond County. So from 2010 to 2021, we lost owner occupancy at 11%. So there's 11% in decrease in the number of people who actually owned the property and resided in that property in Richmond County. What you'll also notice was the uptick in the number of units that became rental properties. So that number jumped by 12%. And of course, our unoccupied vacant structures jumped also from 11,000 to 17,000. So that it represents a 50% change. These numbers are indicators and they are predictors in most instances of how your community is doing. As a whole, you can't ever stop with just a couple of data slides. You always keep digging and keep digging. But one of the things we look at too is what our median home values are. So when you look at home values, you look at your population, you look at what's changing from renter to owner and how that impacts things. So you'll see right here that Richmond County's median value for a home is $132,100. Now, anybody who's bought a home in the last 5 years knows that that number is not realistic. You're not getting a house that you think necessarily for $132,100. But this is based on the 2021 census data. So, but we still represent that as the median home value. There is a reason why this number is 132,000. So I'll get to that in a moment. But the other thing is you also look at the rents in the area. The average rent in Richmond County is coming in around $941. That's typical of a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. Okay. So it is very much one of those things when you'll see the median value is far below, but we're sticking around the same numbers as the same counties of the same size, a similar size with regards to the rents. And anyone who's looked for housing, to be that rental or home ownership, has experienced the challenges with these types of rents. And that's my husband, sorry y'all. So where are we now? One of the things that we have to look at when we talk about the data is we do an analysis. We looked at a couple of things. You've heard population, you've heard housing, and then we look at education, employment, and income. What you'll notice if you look in figure E3 right here is that we have a pretty good salary range right here. This is the household income. So this doesn't necessarily reflect all of the CSRA, because we all know their median household incomes are higher than that, but this is just Richmond County. The other thing we look at is the education attainment. Augusta is on par and Richmond County is on par for education for those obtaining a high school degree and higher. The other thing that we look at are the unemployment rates as of May 2023. So Augusta is keeping pace with the U.S. We're still, a tad bit higher, but we're talking a fraction higher than the average. So there's nothing that's alarming in the numbers right now. But one of the things this whole picture is telling us is that one of the things you'll see, the picture that it's painting, is that the income and the jobs are in Richmond County, but the people aren't living in Richmond County. This isn't something that you haven't heard before, but the data is showing what's going on. So one of the things that's the most important thing with regards to the comprehensive plan is we have to make time to engage the community. The comprehensive plan is not the government telling the community what it should look like. It's the community giving us an opinion about what it should look like. So what we did is we took that data and then we combined it with some of the qualitative data, which is the talking to the people via the 6 meetings that we had. And what we identified were the areas in need of improvement and the things that were good. I want to make a mention, you have the document in your book, but this goes without saying, sometimes there can be too much emphasis on what's not being done right, but there is about 5 pages of accomplishments that are also included in this document. So I urge you to look at that, but I didn't want to chuck too much into the slideshow. But based on the data and based on the conversations and the meetings and the activities, we actually did charrettes and activities where people were given blank checks and they were explained how much infrastructure things cost, how much certain activities cost, and they got to pick and choose where they would spend the money if that money was given to them. So it was very much an interactive process. What emerged was areas in need of improvement. One of the things we just talked about is the population migration. One of the things that wasn't on the slideshow was we noticed that people didn't necessarily leave the CSRA, they left Richmond County. When people leave Richmond County, we have population migration. The other thing that came out of that is our population shift or migration came from people between the ages of 35 and 55, which means that people during their typically highest earning years were leaving our county. So we have to do something about that. So the next thing we noticed was the stagnant housing market. One of the other things that we talk about when we look at housing, when we look at population migration, I think about 70%, 65 or 70% of our homes are older than 20, 30 years old. So when you have homes that are older, you have people who want they have different requirements. It's a new generation buying a house. So if you don't have the money to upgrade those homes or the time and the wherewithal and the knowledge to do it, you're going to just buy something that's ready to move into. So we need to look at why we have the stagnant housing market, and some of that is influenced by the age of the city. We are an old city, and that's a beautiful thing, but we have to figure out how to capitalize that. A lot of it also goes back to limited infrastructure. When you lose a large segment of your population, or you see that shift that has income, you lose investment in infrastructure because the property taxes are changing too. So you've got the demographic shift that we're talking about. Where we are headed now also looks at the good. We have quite a few higher education opportunities within Richmond County, from our magnet schools to our regular public school system and to our universities. We have several options. We have an educated workforce in Richmond County. You can just look at all of the jobs, the hospitals, all that is located in Richmond County. We have an educated workforce, and we also means we have competitive wages. So we have to look at, again, attracting our residents and keeping the younger and the families here too. So developable land is also very important, and location. We have a great location everybody talks about. Augusta's 2 hours from here, 2 hours from there, but what are we doing with that location information? So the next part, which I told you we were answering questions, is where does Augusta want to go? So we took all this information, which is essentially about 6 pages worth of comments. I'm not going to go into all of those. And we categorized them because you all can't make it to every meeting. What we do is we listen, we capture it, and then we turn it into goals. So what we did is we aligned and we created these community goals, and they are 6. We put 6 goals. One of the goals is to capitalize on the existing assets. That meant things such as our location, our medical center, our military, and of course our recreational, particularly the Riverwalk. Goal number 2 is enhance the quality of life. We're talking about looking at indoor and outdoor recreational space. Number 3 is balanced development. One of the things we talked about is because we are a consolidated government, a city and a county, we have a lot of what people who reside in the county feel like there's an encroachment. The urban area and influence is taking over out in the county, and they would like to still have that suburban feel. They chose a suburban feel. They don't necessarily want to move, but they want to make sure that we have what is considered conscientious or balanced development. Goal number 4 was to be excellent financial stewards. We're already good financial stewards. We want to be great, though. And so one of the things they talked about is properly funding the annual maintenance for our public facilities, including our parks and recreations. And then they also asked for us to consider things beyond SPLOST. So that's why the SPLOST Plus is there. Goal number 5 is to attract and retain young professionals and families. Incorporating mixed use and mixed income housing is going to be key. Improving transit, youth activities beyond sports. One of the things we've all seen is a surge in a number of the youth wanting to do activities that are not centered around sports. Reutilizing our underutilized parks and recreation facilities to potentially house some classes like you ever go to Home Depot or Lowe's and they have the Young Builder program. So some of those programs don't happen as frequently because they don't have the space. But what if we doubled down on the use of our recreational spaces that tend to go underutilized during the summertime in the day and have some classes for that? The other thing, home ec has come out of classrooms. So talk about teaching, talk about shop. We could double the goal there. And so goal number 6 is infrastructure improvements. We already know about sewer systems, and then they need to be expanded to, and we need to improve local roads and incorporate landscaping. So we took these goals, and I know from working in government, we don't have a blank check. We have to be fiscally constrained. So what we did with the comprehensive plan is we created a how do we get there map. We took these goals and we matched them up to some of the activities that the commission has already funded. And we created what we call the How Do We Get There, which is a community work program. This just tells you how we move the ball in the right direction, making sure these projects that are slated and funded are actually moving forward. So what you'll see in your document is each goal has a list of items or projects that are going to help us achieve or get us closer to the goal of capitalizing on Augusta's existing assets. We talked about canal improvements, the modernization of James Brown Arena, Riverwalk 3 times weekly ground maintenance and cleaning. And we did this for every goal. So every goal has a map or a process. But more importantly, you've already funded most of these activities. So we didn't go out there and create something that's going to be pie in the sky. We wanted it to be tangible. A lot of the times what we noticed too from the meetings is the commission has already approved or set things in motion to accomplish the goals. We're just not putting the story together well. And more importantly, we also need to make sure that we're representing the changes. When things get delayed or projects are killed, we need to make sure we're making people aware of it. So we took those 6 goals, and that's what we did. We turned it into a work program, and there are projects that are going to be coming influx, and so there'll be some changes, but overall, this is what we did. We looked at how how the city is progressing if we change nothing. Then we looked at how we could change and how we should change. Then we looked at we put some goals in place and some objectives on how to get there. And then we turned that into a work program that is actually something that we could succeed at. So with that being said, the next steps in this process are on the screen. We've had our kickoff meeting. We've had our public meetings. We had 6 of those. And then we had public comment period, which is going on now. So the document now goes to the CSRA regional collaboration. They will review it, and then it goes to the Georgia Department of Community Affairs for review and approval. The reason this becomes important is because the city of Augusta receives funding as in eligible local qualified status. That's the status they give us that allows us to apply for state and federal funds to do stormwater, CDBG, all of that. Getting your plan approved by DCA is paramount to getting funding to do a lot of the things that we just can't do alone with our current general fund. So I can answer any questions that you all may have. Sorry if it was a little long, but this will come back to you once DCA gives us their comments, and we will be at that time asking for a vote to accept and adopt this so that we can be in compliance, and it'll be sent to the state, and it'll make sure we stay eligible for all of those state and federal funds.
Thank you, Director Delaney. See a colleague in the queue. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 6th, Commissioner Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Delaney, a great presentation. Thank you and your department for your hard work in putting this development plan together. Now, I do notice that you had six meeting points. What happened to the meeting that was held down here? Was it number 7 or was it in conjunction with one of the others? Because I attended one of the meetings and it was here at the Linda Beasley room, but I don't see it here. I see notice you said 6, so I looked at Warren Road, Diamond Lakes, Sand Hills Community, Online, Bernie Ward, and the kickoff. So
it was the 19th. So this is the draft version. I want to be clear. The reason you have that big old, there's a embedded imprint on there because it's the draft. We don't want to finalize. Well, when we caught that, we did correct it. So this is the draft version. But the meeting you're talking about, or the last meeting, is where we went through all of this. Okay. We had a much more in-depth slideshow, and we really I think we were there for 2.5 hours.
I just didn't want you to miss an opportunity to have that included, because you were there, and it was an extensive meeting and intensive as well. So just wanted the record to state that there was another one.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Lewis. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 7th, Commissioner Frantham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Director Delaney, for the presentation. The highlight that I love is that you put things in there that are already funded, and that's where I'm going with this. Ms. Bonner, and I just think that it's time for us to get an update on SPLOST State collections and SPLOST State projects, where we are. I've heard that we're 2 years ahead in collections. If we can put that on the next, what committee would that go under? Finance Committee. Update on SPLOST funds and projects to where we see what's being accomplished or what we need to push along the track, since we are having a good collections. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Frantham. Seeing no other colleagues in the queue?
Mr. Mayor, and
yes.
Just one friendly FYI, you do not have the comprehensive plan in your book. We were only submitted to us was summary, but I'm sure Director Delaney will be able to provide that total report to you upon request. Because it was 193 pages, they sent us the summary.
Oh, okay. Because I'm sorry, mine had the whole thing under item 47. So, but yes, and it's we also have a link. If you go to our webpage, the Planning Development Department is the first thing on that page. So you don't have to dig for it.
All right. Thank you. I already have one other commissioner from the 2nd, Commissioner Pulliam.
Thank you so much.
The floor is yours, madam.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. Great presentation, Director Delaney. To add to what you just said about it being on the website, are we marketing that there is now like a comprehensive plan that is on the website? So via our social media, getting the word out. What I'm hearing a whole lot of lately is that everyone doesn't have access to social media. Mm-hmm. Everyone doesn't have access to the internet. So there are some citizens in Augusta, Richmond County that don't really get these notices per se. Are we going to be putting them maybe in the water bill or some type of like some way we can get the word out there that we are working on a plan and the plan is out here and available?
So during the public meeting process, we utilized the newspaper, and then several of our meetings, we actually posted signs in the ground the week of the meeting. We did do social media, and there was some direct mailings that were done. Because we're at the point now where it's under review, we've closed out the public comment period. They could still view it, but a lot of the changes could potentially affect, if there are too many changes, it could affect our approval. So I wouldn't recommend that we open it back up necessarily for intense comments, but definitely if they see something, let us know, and we have a window to address it. DCA will take about 45 days with it. So when their comments come back, we can incorporate ours, but we don't want to send them mixed messages by sending another draft.
And just to clarify, my comment wasn't to open it back up for discussion, but just to let people know that that is a live document and that they're able to view it. So actually marketing what we have put together already.
Yeah, we have run it in the paper, but we can run it again we don't have any issue. We have the budget. And by the way, the department did this in-house. We budgeted $150,000 from the general fund to do this, and we accomplished it in-house with about $20,000. So I want to say a special thank you to my staff, and we saved the city $130,000.
Where's that money? Where's that money? No.
So yes, but I did want to point that out. They did it. So thank you.
Director Delaney, great work. We appreciate you.
All right.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions from my colleagues? Seeing none?
Well, we did serve Chick-fil-A at the final meeting, and we let them know we saved money, so we served Chick-fil-A. You should have been there, but we did. So
great work.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, let's move forward.
So we will receive this as information.
Receive this as information without objection. No objection. Received as information.
Okay. Next item 48, direct planning and zoning to increase size of rezoning signs.
You got it. All right. Commissioner Mason, you have the floor, sir.
Yes, Director Delaney, is she?
She's still here.
Oh, there she is. No, this is just really a simple request. I know, I think before you got here, when I was on before, our zoning signs were bigger, maybe 30 by something or another. But these ones are really small. And there's a lot of times where they are encumbered by just maybe nature, whether it's bushes or trees or whatever the case may be. I don't know what the process is in terms of your protocol for the placement of them, but the size of them are really, really small. Is there any way that we can make them a little bit bigger than what they currently are?
I will reach out and get some estimates from the entities that do that service, and we can look into it definitely. The challenge we had before is they were paper, and so they would get rained on.
Right.
So you'd have a sign, but you couldn't read any of the text on it. That's why we went to the laminated version. But it is not a hardship. I would say give us about 2 months to order and get everything in, and we'll definitely take a stab at that.
And is it possible to, I don't know if they have like reusable where you could maybe just change the wording?
That's what we use now.
That's what you're using now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just the size is what we need to have.
As they get bigger, what happens is there's no framing for it. So then you have the same thing where it collapses in. So we had that challenge with people were stealing our steaks and things of that nature. It happens more commonly than we want to admit.
Especially around election time.
Yes. So, but yes, definitely we can look at enlarging that and making sure it's a more readable version. I'll just look and see, but allow us a couple to get everything figured out and ordered.
Can do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Director Delaney, I think that's it. Madam Clerk, let's continue.
Item 49, a motion to approve RFP 23850, professional services for executive recruiting service to Developmental Associates LLC in the amount of $31,750.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 7th, Commissioner Franham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Based on what we just received, I'd like make a motion to approve. We received a letter that the former administrator would not be involved in any of the processes of moving forward, so I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second. Good Lord, it's a chime in. I think I heard the Commissioner from the 9th, the second. From the 6th. From the 6th. So make it noted.
Lewis.
It is seconded from the Commissioner.
Unless the Commission from the 9th has a baritone voice.
Madam Clerk, I have a motion and I have a proper second from the Commission from the 6th. Or is there any further discussion before we vote? Seeing no colleagues in the queue, I think we voted, Madam Clerk.
Okay.
Push the button, Bobby. Push the button, Bobby. Why y'all give me push the button? Push the button, Bobby.
Mr. Garrett is gone. Mr. Johnson. And Mr. Mayor, if I could just advise Commissioner McKnight.
Yes.
Commissioner McKnight. Okay. The commission has received a letter from Developmental Associates giving assurance to the commission that Ms. Janice Jackson would not be involved in any way during the recruitment process for the city administrator for Augusta. Mm-hmm.
So we're voting on this number 49, correct?
Right, for approval. We have Mr. Franham made the motion, Mr. Lewis second. So we're voting. So how would you be voting?
I vote yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
That motion carries with Mr. Garrett out.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there any further business that we have today before us?
No, sir, we'll put it on the next one.
All right. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending today's meeting. Please, before I adjourn this meeting, we have the commissioner from the 9th would like to make a comment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to just thank my colleagues, the commission, Mayor Johnson, and First Lady Johnson for wrapping your arms around me during this difficult time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, because it was hot out there on Saturday.
Commissioner, you're out of order, sir. You're out of order. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today. Please remain cool in this hot weather and be safe. This meeting is adjourned.
Yeah, because it was hot. It was real hot.